Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to today's webinar where we're looking at the 7 critical success factors to setting up shared services. So I extend to you a very warm welcome. My name is Susie West, and as many of you know who have been on our webinars before, I set up sharedserviceslink.com in 2007, having been in the finance and accounting shared services market for about 10 years prior to that. The company was set up primarily to help people in finance and accounting shared services perform better. And we do that by extending best practice information through conferences, through masterclasses, through our newly launched website. Please do go and check it out. And through our webinar program. So our aim is to help our members and our customers improve their performance by extending that best practice information. So let's have a quick look at what the agenda looks like for the next 60 minutes. We've touched on introductions. I'm going to then briefly talk about what you need to know about how this webinar works, and then really talk about why we're having this debate today. And then I'll be passing directly over to our presenters for today, who will get straight into the subject matter. We'll then take your questions and look to close on the hour. In terms of how this session works, it's a very straightforward platform, GoToWebinar, but if you do have any technical queries, please do use your free text box in your GoToWebinar panel to submit any technical queries that you might have. We do have technical support on the line to help you if needed. Very importantly, shared services is a massive investment for a lot of organizations, so I'm sure that you will have many, many questions to ask. Do utilize this opportunity to get the questions answered that you're seeking. If I can ask you now, please, to just jot down the 2 or 3 things that you're wanting to get from this session. If we come to the end of the session and you haven't had those questions answered, please do submit them to me. Now, how it works is that all questions come to me, again, via the free text panel in your GoToWebinar panel. There's a section called questions. They come directly to me, and as facilitator, I then take those questions and put them to the speakers in the last 10 minutes of this webinar. So please do make sure you get your questions over to me sooner rather than later. It will increase the likelihood of them being asked. Right, let's get straight into content. In terms of why we're having this discussion today, you'll see from the slide that we've got on your screen right now that an average shared services takes about 2 to 3 years to roll out. So this is information which we've taken very generously from the Hackett group, and you can see that world-class organizations seem to set up shared services a little faster, within 1 year. But as an average, it takes between 2 and 3 years to set up shared services. And this is illustrative of a very major point, which is shared services is a big commitment for organizations. So when setting up shared services, you absolutely must make sure that you are following best practice procedures. And you'll know when you do shared services that you'll not necessarily have a wealth of shared services experience already incumbent within your organization. So it's often that you do look outside the organization for those best practices, and they're not always obvious. So what we're looking to do today is to share with you some of those best practices, and really the best person to share those success factors with you is somebody that's been through shared services many, many times. So we'll be introducing that speaker just shortly. But for the time being, I would like to introduce our first speaker for the day. This is Catherine Walker, Head of Business Development from MIDAS. Over to you, Catherine.
Thank you, Susie. Hello, as Susie mentioned, my name is Catherine. I work for MIDAS. Manchester is one of the UK's foremost cities with a thriving economy and a progressive local government that has a can-do and supportive attitude to business. MIDAS is Manchester's investment and development agency. We're here to support new and existing businesses with any location-related issues, as well as providing comprehensive advice and support on a free and completely confidential basis to potential investors. Over the last decade, Manchester City region has emerged as one of Europe's leading shared service hubs. This has resulted in a highly developed industry infrastructure. MIDAS has worked successfully with today's main presenter, David Rattigan, for some time, as he has led the setup of 2 shared service centres into the Manchester City region, those of Sodexo and Premier Foods, and we are delighted he is here today to share his experience with you. The City region alone is home to a cluster of 30 facilities employing over 5,000 people, with a further 15 shared service centres across England's northwest, resulting in a large, skilled labour pool that specialises in finance, procurement, human resources and IT. Manchester is an established and proven base for national centres such as Sainsbury's, Marks and Spencer, Royal Bank of Scotland and Premier Foods, and MIDAS has worked extensively with these companies to develop their shared service centre offer in Manchester. Manchester is also a leader in pan-European service centres supported by its international and cosmopolitan population. This has attracted a number of prestigious global companies such as Kellogg's, Japan Tobacco International, and more recently US company SPX, all of which operate multilingual finance and accounting functions out of Manchester. Manchester is very much a location where shared service operators can balance the requirement for a high-quality facility with the need to achieve significant savings in the delivery of internal services. Manchester offers shared service centres a low-risk environment due to the established cluster we have in the city. As I mentioned, it's over 30. You will be able to easily recruit trained staff familiar with a shared service culture and benefit from quick scale-up times. With the largest travel-to-work catchment of any regional city, over 5 million, and a young and growing population, Manchester provides a highly skilled and, more importantly, sustainable labour pool. Within a wide, culturally diverse population and a continuing migration of foreign nationals, Manchester's labour pool continues to grow, offering unrivalled multilingual capabilities that add value to businesses at a realistic cost. Manchester also has one of the largest student populations in Europe. The city region is home to 5 universities, giving a combined student population in excess of 100,000. This provides employers with a large, flexible and easily accessible workforce for shift work and peak call times throughout the year. All of this means Manchester can offer a high-quality location with lower operational costs. Realistically, we believe you can achieve 30% cost savings in terms of salaries and commercial property over London and the South East. Finally, Manchester's location at the centre of the UK means you are in close proximity to other UK cities. With an effective road network, London and all other provincial cities less than 2 hours away by rail, and an airport with a route network of over 180 direct flights worldwide. I'll now pass you back to Susie for a poll question. Over to you, Susie.
Thank you very much indeed, Catherine. So let's have a look at the maturity in terms of shared services adoption of everybody on this webinar today. So please tick the button which is most appropriate to your own situation. Where are you today on your own shared services journey? Are you evaluating setup? Are you actually designing shared services? Are you in go live, or go live is imminent, or you've just gone live? Are you post go live and in the stabilization stroke continuous improvement phase? Or are you do you have the majority of that behind you and you're considering doing mainly offshoring and outsourcing now? So if you can tick the box which is most appropriate to your own shared services journey. Only 50% of viewers have actually voted, so if the other 50% could cast their vote, the more of you that vote, the more meaningful the response. So please do, if you haven't already ticked the box, please do so. Are you evaluating setup, currently designing? Are you in go live is imminent, or you've just gone live? Are you in stabilization to continuous improvement phase, or are you looking at mainly offshoring and outsourcing now? Closing the poll in 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's have a look at some of those results. You can see it coming up on your screen now. So we've got really about 40% of you, just shy of 40% of you in the kind of what we'd call the startup phase, and about 40% of you in the kind of post-go live stabilization continuous improvement phase. So very interesting indeed. That takes us to our second poll question. For those of you really who ticked the first 3 boxes, let's have a look what we're asking here. The first 2 boxes regarding considering setup, evaluating setup, or in the design stage. For those of you, in the design phase and evaluating shared services, are you considering brownfield mainly, or greenfield mainly, or both? If you could tick the box which is most appropriate to you. Again, waiting for a number of you to respond. So all of really the 40% of you that tick the first two boxes, if you could cast your vote, and I'll be closing the poll in 3, 2, 1. Let's have a quick look at those responses. So again, very interesting. Only 40% of you actually looking to set up shared services in a brownfield site, and the remainder of you, 60%, looking at either greenfield or both. Very interesting indeed. Now I've got the great pleasure of introducing David Rattigan. Many of you would have just heard Catherine talk of David Rattigan just now. And David's got a very interesting experience that we're going to be drawing on right now. So over to you, David.
Thanks, Susie, and hello, everybody. Lots of great stuff has been written regarding the successful setup of shared services. And this webinar has the difficult job, I guess, of trying to add something to that. Right at the outset, I'd like to say that it's my personal answer to the question that's been posed to me by MIDAS and sharedserviceslink, which is what are the 7 critical success factors to setting up shared services. And I guess it's important for me that I know that you know that it's a David Rattigan experience-based view, from getting some things right in my experience, but also from getting some things wrong, and from seeing the factors that I've selected applied, or in some cases not applied, across a range of companies with differing consequences. What I'll cover is some general thoughts about shared services, what it is, etc., and then go into the 7 individual success factors with some analysis for each. So where to start? I think a useful place is to ask yourself, is the setup of shared services a program or a project? And anyone who has studied MSP or Prince 2 will recognize some of the definitions provided on the screen here by the UK Office of Government Commerce. And if we just look at program first of all and pull out some of the elements, a program is the implementation of a set of related projects to deliver outcomes and benefits related to the organization's strategic objectives with a lifespan of several years, whereas a project is maybe something more singular about delivering a particular product to a agreed business case. I think a number of you may say, you know, why does that matter? Well, I think it matters because mindset matters. For me, the setup of shared services is without question a program. And up front, we need to be clear. We need to have confidence that the organization is in the right mindset for the journey ahead. Shared services is a highly significant undertaking for any business. The change brought about can be transformational in nature. The benefits can be dramatic. The costs of getting it wrong can be quite high. Shared services programs will probably be made up of hundreds of individual projects and will only complete after many years of work. But shared services is now a well-trodden path, and it's one that organizations should be able to embark upon with a high degree of confidence. There are a number of cases of sometimes quite large organizations not fully appreciating the significance of these programs of work until it was well into delivery. And this can result in frustration and, importantly, widespread challenge to the validity of step change business cases. For me, it's simply critical that senior stakeholders recognize up front that a shared services program is a transformational business venture and organize the program and the wider organization accordingly for success. When you ask yourself, what is shared services? It may be said, let's get back to basics. One definition that you will see if you go onto a search engine is the one that's on the screen here. Shared services is an operational philosophy that involves centralizing administrative functions that were once performed in separate divisions or locations. Services that can be shared among the various business units of a company include parts of finance, procurement, HR, and IT. And if anyone has worked for a large corporate and has spoken to perhaps an old-timer there, they will often hear them say at the beginning of a shared services journey that they've seen all this centralized stuff before. They'll usually then go on to describe how it never worked and it was subsequently decentralized, and of how the nice chap who led it the first time was last heard of making a career out of telling his stories on large teleconferences. But seriously, the word centralized is often not popular with shared service professionals, and this implies that implementing shared services is different to simply centralizing things. Winning that argument over time with the old-timer is perhaps the litmus test for your program. If we ask ourselves, why might it be different? I think this kind of question can help build an understanding early on about what it is we are trying to deliver and why it might be different to the obvious. Over the next 3 slides, I will try to build for you through 3 David Rattiganisms, if you like, my perspective on what shared services is, and discuss some natural points that these throw up for consideration by your program. My first perspective is that shared services is about getting all the back office stuff together in one place, allowing the business units to focus more time and resources on the front office activities, like partnering, that facilitate value creation. Importantly, this suggests that shared services can only ever be half of the functional transformation story. Aligning the program with functional transformation seems to make sense. It's also unlikely that you can get all of the back office stuff together at once, so it needs to be a journey. And like any journey, it will require accuracy about current position and the required destination, and choices will need to be made about the route and when we should travel. Second perspective, shared services for me is about designing the optimal way to deliver shared process across an organization, standardizing the organization around that as much as possible, and then ensuring the most effective means of managing continuous process improvement exists going forward. This suggests that shared services are at least a champion of effective shared process design. It should be apparent that we will have a number of very interested stakeholders in any process. And critical design questions, therefore, are what sits in, what out of the shared services organization from a process perspective? What is the best approach for the design and ongoing management of this end-to-end process? My third perspective is that shared services will create a new business unit made up of services and costs that in the past sat below the front office priorities of the commercial business units. Shared services should add tangible value by focusing on excellent customer service whilst driving the quality and efficiency of a range of service products. By charging in a manner aligned with strategic objectives, energy and investment will be focused appropriately as the commercial business units for the first time see the real costs, the drivers of them, and see the benefits of acting in accordance with the cost drivers. For me, this suggests that the organization should be able to see a stepped improvement in customer service, and over time, by working with shared services, a significantly lower cost. This internal market, for me, is critical in understanding the difference between a shared services philosophy and simply centralization. Importantly, though, it's about improving the organization itself, and shared services must never become self-serving. It is an internal business unit, not an external business. And this last point is an obvious trapdoor for any frustrated entrepreneurs who have decided to take a career in shared services. Through implementation, we need to be pragmatic a lot of large international businesses have implemented what I might call true shared services models, as described previously in the slides above. Some smaller regional organizations do not need or want that same kind of approach. Some businesses, a surprising number of businesses, name things shared services, but decide in reality to stay much closer to centralization. And that may well be the right answer for that particular business. The majority of shared service principles, though, can be delivered with tangible value add in most businesses if the program is approached in the right way by the organization. Often, though, to be pragmatic, you have to stop some way short. What is key for me is the understanding up front of what it is we are trying to deliver. And if it is shared services, the following presentation will outline the critical success factors that I believe are the ones to focus on. Now I'd like to hand back to Susie for a poll question. Over to you, Susie.
Thank you very much indeed, David. So, before David goes into the 7 critical success factors for setting up shared services, let's have a look at what the main driver is for you doing shared services. So this is for everybody on the webinar, regardless of what process you are currently at, what stage you're currently at. What is your central driver? Just one answer only, I'm afraid. Is it mainly cost reduction, mainly service improvement, mainly process improvement, or are you mainly looking to increase control? So cost reduction, service improvement, process improvement, or are you mainly looking to increase the control you've got surrounding the finance function? 60% of you have voted. We're still waiting for a number of you to come back. Please do so. I'll be closing the poll in 3, 2, 1. Let's have a look at what is driving the majority of people in their shared services initiatives. Results coming up now. You can see that just shy of 50% of you are being driven by cost reduction. So interesting results there. I think had I asked that question 5 years ago, it would have been well over 50%. A lot of organizations are now looking to focus on service improvement as a key driver. So 49% are focusing mainly on cost reduction, followed by process improvement at 23%. Very interesting indeed. And back to you, David.
Thank you, Susie. Before we go through the critical success factors, let's just pause for a second to just be absolutely clear about what it is I'm trying to identify for you. On the screen now you'll see a definition for critical success factors as defined by the UK Office of Government Commerce. Okay, critical success factor 1 then is to ensure the context for the shared services journey is understood and agreed. If vision and target operating model are the accurate assessment of our ultimate destination, the context for the shared services journey is the accurate assessment of our current position. Getting this understood correctly and being clear why the shared services journey is urgent and necessary is my first and perhaps most important critical success factor. Within this piece of work, we must prioritize an understanding of the big picture. We must ask and get honest answers to the big questions. What is the business strategy? What are the functional strategies? Why are they what they are? What issues are the businesses wrestling with? Perhaps changing markets, competitors, technology. What are the competitors doing? What is the DNA of this business? Is it process-driven? Are there high or low levels of centralization already? Is it an entrepreneurial in nature business, or is it run by an entrepreneur? Is it top-down led, or is it more collegial in nature? What is the power of the business unit versus corporate? And what are the attitudes to change? What is the ownership model? Is it public, partnership, a cooperative, PLC, private equity? What are the big time stealers for the front office business operators? What is the morale and motivation of the employees? Why is it what it is? What is the organization's view of outsourcing? The honest answer to these questions will all bring with them different drivers, different burning platforms, if you will, to be dealt with in the program ahead. Stepping down a level in detail, we need to collect specific data and then maintain it systematically. Volumes, throughput and inboxes, KPIs, costs, full-time equivalents by process, team, location, any outstanding audit points. We might run technical assessments and process health checks to identify the current levels of process automation, any poor configuration, any obviously broken process. Identify the big resource drivers. And having gathered all this information, we should find the time to stop and think and then work the data, running comparisons with externally available data. What assessments can be made when comparing the data externally? Have other organizations been through the same journey, dealt with the same issues? It's very important, I think, to run stakeholder interviews, user workshops, to check understanding, to test assumptions, to develop some early views, resolutions, and costs, etc. Fundamentally, you are searching to identify if a shared services program can add tangible value to this organization. Critical success factor 1 is perhaps the ready bit in ready, aim, fire. In my experience, a number of highly influential executives appear to prefer fire, aim, why weren't you ready, or JFDI. And this can be a source of failure for these types of program. My first role, in fact, in shared services at United Biscuits over 10 years ago was when I was shipped in to sort out an almighty mess caused by a program delivering in an environment that had not thought through the context properly or obtained the right buy-in for change. Having established the centre, it was shocked at the scale of the issues to be fixed and the every man for himself culture that sometimes goes hand in hand with crisis. Fortunately for United Biscuits, a move to private equity ownership brought a much more rigorous approach to risk management and change, and that centre went on to top quartile levels in both efficiency and quality. Although UB had not understood the burning platforms before go live, it certainly did after, and shared services can do that very effectively. I think it's better to understand the context up front. Critical success factor 2, get the right sponsor and SSC director. As a long-standing SSC director, I absolutely respect the role of an effective sponsor, but I must say that nodding dog sycophants should not apply to be one. It really is a critical job and not simply a name in a box. To be balanced, shared service directors should not be egotistical empire builders. It is also a critical job and should passionately serve the wider business, not self or the shared services organization only. Matching the particular culture of the organization with the right sponsor who can work well within it is a task of monumental importance for the program. Sponsors and SSC directors need to be open with each other. They need to trust each other's capabilities and integrity. There will be stress, perhaps frustration in the relationship at times. The relationship has to be strong enough to ride through that, though. The health of this particular relationship will either cast a cloud or sunshine over the whole setup. Time and energy should be invested in getting this relationship right. In my last full program at Premier Foods, I went sailing with my sponsor, and I can report that he wasn't so clever when he became the fender in my man overboard drill. But seriously though, a good sponsor gets the business. And to be fair to my sponsor at Premier Foods, he was a great sponsor. He or she needs to understand the context for the business that we've described earlier and be able to vision the right future. They need to be a leader, able to provide clear direction and remove obstacles. They should be respected within the senior stakeholder group and be able to influence them at difficult times. They are likely to be a beneficiary from the success of the program, be a relevant stakeholder, for example, the CFO in finance shared services. He or she needs to ensure the security of resources and own the journey, giving the program real time and energy. For a good SSC director, I believe you should be looking for someone who has high levels of energy, a real passion for process and service excellence, has high levels of emotional intelligence, and is a builder of great teams. Someone who can see the opportunities, being both strategic and resourceful. Someone who can see the interrelationships between process and people. They need to be a strong character, be bold, and prepared to take a few risks. He or she needs to have good interpersonal skills. They need to be credible with people at different levels in the organization. And very importantly, particularly through setup, be a great communicator. My critical success factor 3 is to develop a compelling vision for shared services that simply captures the desired future state. As we've discussed already, understanding what is shared services can be tricky. It's certainly not obvious. Organizations will have very different start points. They all have different problems to fix and different priorities. And as a result, organizations will undoubtedly desire different end states from the setup. For the vision, it is important to keep it sharp and to focus on the essence, that indispensable quality of the end state. Investing time in the building of a sharp statement, articulating the essence of the journey's outcome, is well worth it. It does take time, it will be iterative, and it will need to have engaged fully with all the stakeholders. But a good vision will work wonders for buy-in, motivation and alignment throughout the setup and long after go live. Frankly, a poor vision is a waste of time at best. Earlier this year, I was lucky enough to work to lead a shared services design team at the John Lewis Partnership in London. And the program sponsor had developed with key stakeholders a great vision that directed the way forward for all of us involved. And an extract of it's included here on the screen. It's positive and motivation. It really captures why the journey is being embarked upon. You can almost assume the context, which was processes and systems that perhaps have been more appropriate in a different, smaller time. The increasingly competitive marketplace and the increasingly difficult challenge of driving the desired for continuous improvement of the partnership's performance. In reality, it takes those context issues that we've described and fixes them. This particular example has real strong buy-in. It informs the designers of the shared service environment what they must build to be successful. Moving on to critical success factor 4. Build a staged target operating model and have clarity about how it will be achieved. The TOM is the destination described in detail, the grounded vision. There will, in all likelihood, be various potential organization models, location options, processes, technologies that can deliver the vision. But having understood the context, the TOM work will throw up the gaps that need to be closed. And all the options will cost different amounts of money and offer different levels of implementation risk. So this is the place for the consultants, for the subject matter experts, for the operators, for the senior stakeholders, whoever you can get really, to kick it all about. There should be real debate before grounding the TOM and the implementation options. Remember that culture that we described earlier. Let's just get it done. This is the point to be careful again. It's important that we design something meaningful. You should be happy, in my opinion, to go round and round the various options until the key stakeholders are happy and the business case is a good one, with the vision grounded, the gaps closed, the implementation plan clear, and the costs and benefits aligned. A word of warning. In these hard times, I think it's critical that all of us differentiate between salesmen and consultants. In my opinion, a shared services vision is delivered as much by culture, attitude, the right people, as expensive technology and a new location. Be bold and explicit about what you expect from the to-be organisation within the TOM, and do not dismiss brownfield. It's very easy to assume a new location or new technology will fix all the issues of the day. It is my view that they will not. The right location might be greenfield, or it might be brownfield, but in either, you will need the right competencies. The right ERP may be SAP, or Oracle, or some other system, but it will still need to be implemented well in a manner aligned with the vision. Two key considerations in a greenfield location are the availability of the right skills in the right numbers and the right level of genuine support in setup. And in this regard, I have no problem at all in vouching for MIDAS and the Manchester City region in terms of great people and great support. I've actually seen it in operation. From the stage, Tom, we should be able to define the projects required to deliver it, and the program can be organised accordingly. A common question surrounds the correct sequencing of the program. The stages of the program can be identified based on lots of factors: resource availability, asset availability, risk, scale of benefits. I'm personally not sure that there are any generic right answers. But if our context work is good right at the beginning, we will know what the burning platforms are, and we'll organise the program accordingly to get at them. Now I'd like to hand over to Susie for a poll question. Over to you, Susie.
Thank you very much indeed, David. So David touched on location, very much in critical success factor number 4. So let's have a little look at location and what you think is the most important factor when considering location, or when you did consider location for your shared services centre. These are multiple choice, so you can answer more than one that jumps out. Was cost, or is cost, the most important? Proximity to your existing headquarters, the regulatory environment that's on offer, the low risk element of the location, or the availability and the talent of the workforce. So if you could tick the boxes, as I say, you're not restricted just to one. If one or two jump out at you, do feel free to tick 2 boxes. So we're looking at cost, proximity to HQ, regulatory environment, low risk location, or the availability of the workforce. Please do still cast your vote. Still waiting for a number of you to respond. So if you haven't, please do so, and I'll be closing the poll in 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's have a look at the responses. There are 2 clear winners here, and cost won't be a surprise to you. But the availability of the workforce is also is the clear winner. So I think that's very interesting indeed. Thank you very much, and back to you, David.
Thank you, Susie. Moving on to critical success factor 5. For me, drive a positive culture that has at its heart an innate equilibrium between customer service, quality and efficiency. Before I moved into some consultancy work, I used to call that innate balance. But you need to drive a positive culture. You need to make it happen. People do have an innate understanding, but getting this thing right is a balance between customer service, quality and efficiency, and it's not easy. None of us are perfect, unfortunately, and getting this balance right will take an awful lot of effort and drive. Shared services is fundamentally about people and processes. We will have all seen examples of projects or processes within a program designed without that balance. Perhaps overly zealous controls or rigidity of procedure killing customer service, or poor training leading to unchecked teams offering too much of a desire to please, killing the efficiency or quality of a service. We need to drive a program that thinks constantly about that required balance. All the projects should be designed with that balance in mind. And for me, they should be signed off by the program to ensure the drive exists for all the processes in the program. I found that people get it easily enough, but they also have personalities. And the stakeholders have personalities too. And sadly, people can be quite manipulative and have pet projects. So it will not happen without the right organised effort to achieve it. A shared services team should operate as a business unit. But like with any business, its products or services need to be of a high quality and be at a price the customer is willing to pay for. The quality of the service comes in the matching of the output to the defined requirements. And this is not necessarily the same as best practice. How many times do we see the phrase best practice being used when the business has not the desire or the money to deliver it? Quality is about the delivery to agreed specifications. The specifications need to deliver the target operating model. And if the program is tight and correct, the TOM will deliver the vision. The efficiency of a service comes from a thorough review of the options, relentlessly stripping out wasted effort. My advice is to think end-to-end process design when thinking quality and efficiency, i.e. avoid artificial walls. It is a common failing I have observed for managers to develop solutions that are great for the SSC, but frankly a nightmare for the wider business. Effective quality and efficiency will involve a thorough review of technology and its flexibility, the degree of change being sought, the complexity and risks associated with that change, time constraints, etc. Compromises need to be agreed with the customer. Remember, quality is about delivering customer specifications. And if our program management is tight, these in turn will deliver customer expectations. Having established the right solutions for the defined requirements, they need to be documented, from a top-level process map right the way through to user guides, forming the basis for training and ongoing continuous improvement activity. In Sarbanes-Oxley environments, this documentation takes on added significance. A clear process ownership framework and the right resource levels for the task are very important. But like quality and efficiency, customer service, often used, it's in our name, needs to be driven. Having defined the right process and technology, staff need to be trained in them effectively. The desired culture and behaviours, in my opinion, need to be explicit. Ensure a competency framework is in place and embedded in job descriptions. Defining a list of customer touch points and working through various scenarios can throw up lots of opportunity for customer service improvement ahead of go live. Effective service relationships should be developed. Staff should be encouraged to meet face-to-face with customers ahead of go live and ongoing. A huge risk is that the shared services team becomes faceless and therefore easy to blame. Teams should seek out process issues and then use internal processes to make things better. The management of call centres and processes for query support is a real hotspot in shared services, and focus on training and simulation, being clear that it works well before go live, critical activities. My advice again is to watch the service metrics very closely at go live. Ongoing service data collection will be critical to the subsequent development of a continuous improvement culture. Utilise notice boards and the physical environment to show demonstrable focus on the customer. The impact a positive management style has on setup success cannot be overplayed. It's important to recognise, I think, the exceptional circumstances of a setup. There's large-scale recruitment and redundancy, new offices, new ways of working, new data and information requirements, new procedures, new or developed technology, things that are thrown at people only a few times in our career. With tight timescales, good managers can lose themselves. and behaviours can suffer. I think it's very, very important to focus surveys or other means on morale and motivation, because these can provide valuable information. Energy should be directed accordingly, keeping the team supported, focused and positive. Simple things like team events, being visible and having a laugh, as well as driving hard, go a long, long way. Ensure positive working relationships between the program, project and operational teams exist. In my experience, many a problem can be dealt with if the team are happy and up for it, and many a non-issue can become a nightmare if they are not. Manage stakeholders well, critical success factor 6. Stakeholders, as the people interested in the setup, will judge its ultimate success. There will likely be several perspectives, often conflicting. Understanding who's interested and to what degree is a critical activity. Shared services will probably threaten power bases and end long-term relationships. I've not come across one yet that is not sensitive. Organise to manage this critical activity. Have a specific change management work stream running throughout the setup and early life. Make it effective though. This team can sometimes become remote if not fully integrated with the program. The sponsor and the SSC director have big roles here in keeping this team high profile and relevant. Target stakeholder activity. Lots of tools exist to help differentiate stakeholders and the development of appropriate plans. They should be used actively. An honest assessment of the impact of our team's stakeholder engagement is valuable, and appropriate adjustment of the next activity important. This is probably as much a management art as it is a science. The sponsor needs to play a pivotal role with senior stakeholders. Great communication in all its guises is at the heart of a good setup. The various stakeholders, as the people interested in the setup, will judge its ultimate success. And there'll likely be often several perspectives, often conflicting. Any lack of alignment between communication and stakeholder management will often be the missing link when trying to understand those different perspectives. Managing stakeholders can be really difficult. Some stakeholders are simply difficult. And personally, I've not yet got all the answers clear for how to deal with all types of stakeholder. But I am clear that it's not about a perfect delivery. It is about trying to consistently do the right thing and counting on the goodwill of the organization to see that. Apply governance appropriately. Critical success factor 7. Have an effective steering group with the people who can make things happen present. Align program policy with corporate policy, for example around recruitment or the escalation of risk and issues. Authorizations need to be clear with so much going on. Ignorance can cause unintended conflict with unintended consequences. Develop robust and well-communicated plans from the outset to the right level of detail. Have an open approach to issues and risk management. Encourage the logging of issues and risks. I think this is absolutely pivotal to a successful setup. Any culture that pushes away issues and risks is ultimately going to miss the trick and potentially lead to failure. Internal audit, external audit can be great sources of fantastic information, so foster good relationships with them. Have an explicit program methodology. Communicate it, train it, use it. We all come from different places. We've all got different experiences. So for me, being clear about what that is and how individual projects deliver results is critical. A shared services program can often run into those hundreds of projects that we talked about earlier on. So running a well-organized program is essential. Ensure SLAs developed reflect the processes developed and trained. Operate them front foot or not at all. Do not leave them in a drawer. Ensure the charge-out mechanisms reflect the desired behavior. Do not become remote from the real economy, though. It's absolutely critical, particularly on this aspect, the business management, that you do not allow shared services to self-serve. I leave you with a summary of the 7 critical success factors and hand back to Susie for a poll question. Over to you, Susie.
Thank you very much indeed, David. That was a very, very interesting presentation, and thank you much for sharing it with us and drawing on your extensive experience. So out of those 7, we've bundled them into 5 here. Which one resonates with you the most? So it's just one choice only, please. Ensuring the context for the shared services journey is understood and agreed by the people. Securing right sponsors, a right sponsor and a right shared services centre director or shared services organisation director. Developing a compelling vision, managing stakeholders well and communicating that vision to all the relevant stakeholders in an effective way. Building a staged target operational model and applying governance appropriately. Or driving a positive culture, making sure that everybody's happy within the organisation, and people often say if you've got happy staff, you'll have happy customers. So is that the key one that resonates with you? Please, if you haven't already voted, please do so. Let's open the poll in 3, 2, 1. Good, we've got a very high response to that question. And let's have a look at the one that really kind of jumps out and resonates with you the most. So you can see here the third one down, developing a compelling vision and managing stakeholders well. So very interesting indeed. Now I'd like to hand back to Catherine Walker, who opened up this session, for some final words. Back to you, Catherine.
Thanks, Susie. I would just like to quickly close by saying thank you so much to David for joining us today. I'm sure you'll agree he's given us a very comprehensive insight and a very structured framework to setting up a shared services model that might work for you. I think his presentation comes with the benefit of hindsight, which is always a positive move. As you've heard, location can be one of the answers to the problems you're trying to fix on your shared services journey. We believe that Manchester can offer that ideal solution. In a number of cases, we are low risk and we are a very high quality location. For more information, to speak to Caroline Kane, who is our specialist at MIDAS, and also David Rattigan, you've got the details on your screen there, and obviously you will receive them afterwards. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I'll hand you back to Susie. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Catherine. And interestingly, I just wanted to draw upon some of the statistics that were, again, are made available very generously by the Hackett Group, just to get an understanding of what in their survey, their recent survey, what the key critical success factors for setting up a shared services operation were. And you can see here that top management support was absolutely key for about 96% of the respondents. So very, very key indeed. Now we're moving through to questions. We do have a lot of questions here. We've got a couple of minutes for questions. So if you haven't had a chance to shoot over your key questions, we do have about 5 minutes. First question I've got for you, please, David. As far as a multifunctional shared service operation is concerned, what do you have a same approach when setting up finance shared services as you do multifunctional, or do you think it's a slightly more complex program?
Well, I think it's clearly a wider program. I think the success factors that I tried to select, and I did go over them in my own mind time and time again, I changed them many times, I think are applicable to a shared services environment firstly, whether that be finance, because what even does that mean? It's a whole range of services that are called finance shared services. So I believe it would be applicable to all. I also sounded out before the presentation a HR shared service professional and just chatted it through. It connected well there. So my belief is that it's applicable in all these kind of programs.
Okay, good. Thank you. Also, obviously, you were talking a lot about getting senior level sponsorship and how important that is. And that was what kind of came through on the Hackett side as well as the chief critical success factor. In sharedserviceslink.com, when we're doing research here, we often come across shared services managers and directors struggling with getting the right senior level buy-in. You obviously had a great relationship with the individual at Premier Foods, went on a boat with them, and sounds like you had a great time there, and it was very bonding. If you're struggling to get the ear of your sponsor, and you're feeling that your sponsor is listening to other voices within the organisation and not yours, have you got some tips on how you might be able to counter that?
I think the first thing to say is that the right sponsor is one of the critical success factors, because I believe they need to be hugely influential with the stakeholder group. They will be able to keep a path ahead of the program clear, with the right resources being fueled into it to make things happen. I think it's absolutely right that the sponsor, and indeed the program, listens very widely to the stakeholder group. So I think the listening to other voices is a good thing. One of the difficult things about these programs, and boy, I've lived through it enough times now, is when you're hard at it and there is negative feedback, it can sometimes feel personal. It can hurt a bit on occasion. But I think when you think about it with hindsight, the feedback is always good, and you have to take it on board, and you have to just work that bit harder with those stakeholder groups. I think it is important for the stakeholder, the senior stakeholder, as the sponsor, and the program to be aligned. If there's a break there, I think it is serious, and I think it needs to be managed. How to do that, I guess it's, we need to just talk about this and take it forward. I think a broken relationship between the program and the sponsor is a very serious issue.
Okay, good, thank you. I think as well, just to add to that, I think in our experience at sharedserviceslink.com, we found that obviously finance shared services directives are being set up by people who are incredibly strong in finance and accounting. They're not necessarily natural salespeople, but what shared services is about selling a vision, as David has been pointing towards earlier. And so kind of digging deep into your sales skills and being able to sell to the appropriate stakeholders and secure their buy-in is also very key as well. Two more questions. One for MIDAS, please. So one for Catherine. I've got one here for you. As far as setting up a shared services organisation is concerned, how could MIDAS actually support a setup of shared services?
Well, Manchester's developed a great experience over the years in supporting shared service centre setup. We have access to the complete commercial property database, so we can help companies look at suitable sites for their operation. We can also link you into recruitment and training support. Often we do have a very good understanding of the other companies in the area. We can link you into companies that are perhaps downsizing, often helping you to link into that big labour pool that we have here in Manchester. And I know that's often been a key factor when other shared service centres have decided to set up here. They found that an excellent leader straight off. They've been able to tap into the workforce very easily. We can also provide you with demographic information, salary surveys that we have from existing companies that are based here. Just gives you a very good understanding of the market. And we also might do provide a very good aftercare service as well to support you, linking you into Manchester once you are here. So relocation support, if you've got anybody relocating from other sites globally, we can help them get settled into the city.
Okay, good. Thank you very much indeed. Final question. When people are evaluating shared services, David, in your opinion, is there a kind of a cut-off point, I suppose, in terms of if we can use a number of invoices perhaps as our key metric here? Is it worth doing shared service if you're processing, say, under 30,000 invoices a year? What's the kind of starting volume that you think makes sense for an organisation?
I don't know the absolute number. for me, the reason why critical success factor 1 was understand the context is that I genuinely believe each organization is different with different platforms, different problems. You know, things have gone right in the past, things have gone well in the past. And I think the principles of shared services, I think, are very scalable and can operate in a relatively small organization and can work, you know, in a larger organization. I think once you create a beachhead of a shared service environment, perhaps around finance and accounting, I think it's easier, much easier, to then go to other functions looking for that scale that I think is inherent in your question. Because, you know, every organization, you know, has, I think, the opportunity to make these savings. It might affect things about whether you go greenfield or brownfield. Clearly, if there's less savings available, it's going to push you towards being more resourceful, trying to make the most of what you've got. So you might not go to a greenfield site, or you might not put a big new system in. I think in the target operating model work and in the context work, that's where you'd answer those questions. But I don't really believe that there is a cut-off point as such. I think it's just about making sure that the decisions that you take are aligned with your particular business, and you don't, you know, get, you know, excited about the idea of a new greenfield, new system, when actually your business can't afford that.
Excellent. Thank you very much. We are now out of time, so questions have drawn to a close. Thank you very much to both David and to Catherine. That was a very insightful session. I thoroughly enjoyed it. We have coming up the European Summit on Finance, Shared Services and Outsourcing 2011, taking place in March in London. Would you be interested in entering into the raffle? MIDAS has very generously purchased 2 tickets to be won by 2 of you on the line, and we will be disclosing who those 2 are in early January. Would you like to be entered into that raffle? So please do vote. Closing vote in 3, 2, 1. Okay, good. And just moving on, ladies and gentlemen, just want to alert you to the fact that in January, the 18th of January, please do put it in your diary. Join me whilst I walk you through what you need to consider when evaluating or starting up your e-invoicing project. So I'll be helping you, hopefully, if you're looking to do e-invoicing in 2011, make the right decisions as far as that particular journey is concerned. We will be discussing some of the topics that have come out of today further in our LinkedIn group. So please do become a member of our LinkedIn group, sharedserviceslink.com. And you will be able to participate in further discussions then. And for the time being, I thank again our presenters for today. I wish you a very, very happy Christmas indeed, and look forward to welcoming you in January. Thank you very much, and goodbye.